All right, I guess we'll get started then. Um, how's it going, everyone? Good to see that we have some people joining us this morning, this evening, this afternoon, whatever the time is, wherever you happen to be. Thank you for joining us once again. As requested, we're here for another community roundtable. We got some really exciting stuff to share with you guys today. My name's Simon. I'm the CEO of the Loki project, and joining me today we have Keith Jeffries, our CTO, who can say hello if he feels like it.
I think most of you know who I am by this point, so.
Yeah. We have Niels, who is the product manager of Session, our private messaging solution. You may have, I don't think you've been on one of these before, have you, Niels?
No, I have. I've been on one or two already.
Oh, okay. Well, that's good.
Yeah. But yeah, Session. That's it. I do iOS and Android.
And then also joining us today, we have Alex Linton from the marketing team.
Hey everybody, how you doing?
If you've seen a post on Loki's social medias, there's a very high likelihood that this man was the one that posted it.
It's quite true, yeah. So.
And finally, we have Vince, or Vincent, or the Bivitz. He goes by many names, but he's one of the desktop developers for Session at the moment, who has joined us on the team maybe, what's it been now, 2 or 3 months, something like that?
Yep, November 18th was the date, so it's been a while.
Well, I'm glad you remember it. Welcome to the stream, everyone. Welcome to the Community Roundtable. As I said, we've got some interesting things to talk about today. So as per usual, we have a number of questions that we put out a Menti a little while ago. Got some questions from you guys, and we're going to do our best to answer as many of them as we can today, as well as some from the community chat in the live stream as well. So we'll do our best to manage all of that. Going on to the first question. The first question is, what does 2020 look like for Loki? It's a super broad question, straight out of the gate, but a good question to start with. I don't know, Keith, why don't you tell, what do you reckon we should tell them? What's the correct answer?
I mean, if you wanted to condense it down to one word, it's gonna be Session, mostly. Like, we're putting a big focus on Session because we think it's the best way to get Loki into people's hands, or the products that we've built into people's hands. And that's simply because its messengers have upwards of billions of users nowadays, the two most popular ones at least. So if we can build something that's even, 10 times less popular than some of the bigger apps out there, then we can gather a big user base around Loki. That's the primary thing that we're looking at. Other things on the roadmap, stuff like Pulse and Lokinet also will start reaching. Pulse is going to be started on and hopefully released this year, and Lokinet will be kind of developed to such a point where it's working and very stable. So that's kind of, I would say, to condense it down, those are like the roadmap goals over the next the next year, I suppose. I don't know if anyone else wants to jump in there.
Yeah, I'd echo that. Session, in my opinion, really is one of our strongest products right now. It's something that we are really going to try and push to get a large user base by the end of the year. We've set an internal goal of 200,000 by year's end of daily active users. So, we've got a lot of work to do. And this feeds into some of the other questions that we got, like, what's the plan with marketing and all of that kind of thing. I think pretty much everything about Loki's future, both this year and next year, and the years to follow, hinge on the popularity of the products that we've developed. We are one of the few crypto projects that has actually, delivered what we set out to do and remains a good use case for the problem that we set out to solve. We're not just building infrastructure that no one's going to use. We're not just, raising money and then sitting on it or marketing the crap out of nothing. We are, we've worked really hard these last 2 years to get things to where they are now. And if you've been following us for a while, you've probably seen some of the twists and turns along the way. But yeah, this is a really pivotal moment in Loki's history because I don't know. Should Niels, do I have permission to tell him what day we're gonna drop the session, drop the sesh?
Yeah, sure. So the way it's looking right now, the first version of session will be released next week. We're aiming for mid next week, call it Wednesday. Yeah, of course, there will still be lots to do after that. But the first version which features full metadata protection, it has decentralized storage, and it has all the encryption that Signal has, is coming next week, which is very exciting to me.
Yeah, hitting the app stores next week. So that is, quite a big deal for everyone, I should imagine. Now there is actually something that we would like you guys to do about that. Actually, we wanted to talk to you about that. Well, actually, this is Alex's idea. So why don't you tell us what needs to happen, Alex?
Yeah, sure. Right. So basically, if we're launching early, mid next week, thereabouts, then we really want to be getting into trending by the end of the weekend or the end of the week. And so then we'll stay in trending apps over the whole weekend, which is going to get a whole bunch of eyes on session. So of course we need you guys to be able to actually do that. So the more people that can get in there from our community and go and rate and review the app in the App Store, whether it's Google App Store or whether that's on iOS or the Play Store, or on the App Store, then that's going to help us out enormously. So yeah, get in there, rate and review session, and of course, try it out and genuinely give, your honest thoughts and opinions on the app.
Yeah, I think if there is one moment that you can make the most difference to Loki and session, it is going to be this week, this coming week. Once it hits the App Store and the Play Store, if you and your closest friends and whoever you can convince that you already know to download the app and to rate and review it, if you spend the 10 or 15 minutes that's going to take and encourage other people along to do the same, that's going to have more impact than you can possibly imagine to get that early boost of users straight away, to get those early reviews, to get that eyesight straight on the session as one of the, trending hottest, latest apps, whatever, just so we can get that early boost out. Like, it's going to make such a huge difference to our efforts to try and take this from 0 to 200,000 by the end of the year. So if you could help us with that and help us make that happen, that would be outstanding. We'll be posting more about it in the community, giving you guys, a little bit more instruction on how to do it. But yeah, this would be probably the most useful thing you could possibly do for the project at probably all year, actually. So yeah, I hope you do that. And yeah. All right, we'll move on. There's more questions now. We had a question in the chat just before, which was Salamander Sam saying, is it true that the Loki team ate all of the competitions, so you needed a new office to fit in the door? Wait, what? I thought that was a question about, yeah, we did need a new office. We're all in the new office now. We moved just before Christmas. We're in our own space now. It's quite a bit bigger. It's very spacious. It's very relaxing. We like it a lot. What does the question mean? Oh, right. We ate all the competition, so we got fat. Yeah, I see what that says now. Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry, I was a bit slow there. Well, I don't know. We haven't really eaten a competition yet because we need to get the user base, which again is something that you can help us with. So I'm going to remind you every 3 seconds in this stream now to rate and review when it comes out, just because I can. All right, we'll move on to more questions. Who is working for Loki right now and what are they doing? Good question. We have 30 full-time staff working on this project. So there's quite a few people working on it, and there's obviously too many to list. I mean, some of us are here now. Josh and Lucy, who basically lead the marketing team, are currently overseas until Monday. But there's plenty of people around the office. We have quite a number of new marketing team members, which we plan on using to boost the numbers of session very, very shortly. We have our developers, our Australian team, which is largely focused on session, our American team, which is largely focused on Lokinet. We have myself and Chris McCabe and others who work on operations, and there's website development that goes on, there's growth hacking, there's all sorts of things that our team does. So yeah, I mean, there's quite a few people. I hope that sort of answers your question. The team page that we have up at the moment isn't entirely accurate. There's more members there. I don't know how readily we're going to be able to update that given everything that's going on right now. But yeah, I mean, the crux of the matter is that we are among the largest blockchain project teams that I know of, just hands down. And we're mostly based here physically in the office in Melbourne. So, I mean, if that doesn't satisfy you, then you can I'm always happy to answer questions about who we're working with and who is working for us and what everyone does. It's not really a big deal, but if you want to know more about that, always come ask me. So, next question. How is funding holding up for the project? That's quite a me question. I think I'll try spread some questions around soon, gentlemen, don't you worry. Funding is holding up pretty good. We have quite a bit of runway left. We are not immediately concerned. However, in order to best prepare ourselves for the future, 2020 is the year that we start to look at future fundraising and revenue streams as well for the project. We don't have infinite amounts of money. We got set up pretty nicely with the fundraising we did in early 2018. And we've tried to use those funds as wisely as we can. As many of you know, we've been quite conservative with spending lots of money on exchanges and other crap that a lot of other projects usually invest in. So we've done our best with what we can so far, and we want to make sure that we're not like getting very, very close to the end of the runway when we start fundraising. So we want to start thinking about it now, thinking about it early, and making sure that we can actually, sustain the project in several years' time, over the next several years, develop revenue streams, become self-sustaining, and make sure that the network will be able to sustain itself through the block reward, that it's generating value, it's capturing value through usage and that sort of thing. So funding is not really an issue right now, but it is something that we're starting to think about, and that is actually a conversation that I want to start up with the community fairly soon. There is, some of you may be aware that the Zcash block reward for the last 4 years or so has been 20% of that has been granted to companies like the Electric Coin Company and the Zcash Foundation and other things in order to continually fund the development and the progress of Zcash. And basically it was due to expire after 4 years and run out. But obviously the founders of Zcash have realized that that is just not practical. You do have to continue funding things somehow. And so they asked the community whether or not they were comfortable with changing the consensus rules and allowing the 20% reward for the development of the project to continue as is, instead of it ending in a few months' time. And that got approved very recently by the community, so looks like that's going through, and the price went up as a result, which I found quite funny. There are open questions about how Loki sustains itself, how Loki is able to raise money, and all those sort of things. And it is a community dialogue piece. Obviously, this is an open source project. We're trying to create some fantastic decentralized technology that relies on people such as yourselves in order to operate. So we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing by everyone and making sure that we're working with the whole community before we, make any crazy changes or whatever. So not something I really want to talk too much more about right now, but definitely something that needs to be discussed in the near future. So sit tight for more on that. Okay. Got any good questions in the chat, gentlemen? Okay, here's a good one for Niels, I think. What are the challenges with adding a wallet integration in session? Oh, this could be a Niels or a key one. I'm not exactly sure. From Necronemesis.
I mean, wallet integration is something that would happen like a couple months down the line. So we're not really focusing on that yet. We're still focusing on just building up session, making it robust and making it fully featured. So I don't have a concrete answer to that yet. Maybe Key can say more about it because we haven't really spent much time on it yet.
Yeah, I mean, the primary thing with the wallet integration is that we need to get everything kind of working very, very seamlessly on the wallet side, which is not the case on Android or iOS right now. At least the syncing time takes a very long time to sync a Loki wallet or a Monero wallet for that matter. So we've been looking on the research side, we've been looking at it in the past kind of 2 months, ways to actually reduce the scanning time required. We haven't really released any of that information yet, but we think there is some improvements to be made essentially to reduce scanning times, which I think is the most annoying thing about, say, a Bitcoin or a Loki wallet compared with a Bitcoin wallet, for example. Usually you just open your Bitcoin wallet and you can send Bitcoins immediately, whereas with Loki, because of how stealth addresses work, you have to scan every single output on the chain to work out whether it's yours or not. So there's some things that we're looking at around there to kind of speed up the process a little bit. But after that, I don't think the wallet integration will be too hard. If we can get something that is very similar if we can get something that's similar to the speed of Bitcoin, then we'll just drop the wallet in as a tab probably on the messenger. There's a couple of other messengers that have done this, like Status IM. They have an Ethereum wallet in their messenger. So yeah, there's some designs out there as well to follow. But the main thing is improving the underlying core aspect of it.
Cool. All right. Moving on to some of the Menti questions. Are there any coin burning plans? Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think all Blink transactions are getting burnt at the moment, or transaction fees. Is that right?
Yeah, 4/5 of the transaction fee for a Blink gets burnt, and then the other 1/5 goes to, I think it's the miners. In terms of coin burning plans, like LNS will be another feature where we burn coins intentionally. There's a bunch of features that we're thinking about for messenger integration that will also burn coins. So some of the features, like, for example, in Discord, they have like custom emoji sets. We could also allow people to access custom emoji sets in the Loki app by burning some Loki to get access to those. So there's quite a few ways that we've been thinking about recently to burn Loki to offset some of the inflation that's coming through the service node network. But right now, I think the only feature that is implemented is Blink, where we burn some coins. It would actually be good to get a counter of how much Loki has been burned so far, to kind of keep track of how that's balancing against the inflation. I might talk to Jason about that.
Yeah, we're also thinking of ways of people being able to have Loki be burnt for them without them actually having to buy Loki directly. So burning by proxy. And we're exploring ways to do this through the Session app that doesn't expose people's credit card information or personal information to us at all, which is a really interesting challenge. But the way, for example, the way in-app purchases work by default in iOS and Android is when you make that purchase, Apple or Google just sends us a sort of a token authentication that the actual app itself and says, yep, this has been paid. And it just like proves that a payment has gone through, and then it gets fixed up on the Google and Apple backend. But it all comes in aggregate. So the app developers never actually get all of the personal information there. So they're actually really quite good at protecting their users' privacy against the app developers themselves. Obviously, Google and Apple still have your credit card information and all that crap, but they likely have it already because you've bought apps before, whatever else, bought things with Google Pay or Apple Pay or whatever. So, not really increasing your surface there. And then on our end, once we see that a transaction has been paid for, then on our side, we can then just take Loki that we have and burn it to do whatever needs to be done, such as getting premium perks or buying LNS names or things like that, without anyone actually having to own Loki, without us having to send Loki. So we're not acting as an exchange because we're not selling Loki. We're just sorting it out on our end, keeping things nice and simple. But there is expenses to this that we've been looking into, which are quite annoying. So just exploring ways that we can, make the Lokinet work benefit without people necessarily having to KYC into a Bitcoin exchange, buy a Bitcoin, take that Bitcoin, put it onto a Loki exchange, buy a Loki, take it off the Loki exchange onto their session wallet or whatever, and then burn it. That's a very involved process that most users that aren't already into crypto will not bother with. So we want to make sure that people can still access these utilities without having to actually go through that whole process necessarily. They can, of course, if they want to, especially if they want to have Loki available to spend as well. They are going to have to go through that process. So just some interesting things that we're exploring. I can't promise that that's actually going to happen. There may be some unforeseen issues with that we haven't thought about yet, but that's an idea that we've been discussing. So we'll move on, I suppose. Are there plans to get listed on more exchanges? The volume seems low on KuCoin. Look, as we always say every time, we are always looking for more exchanges. But the reality is, the more exchanges you have, the more order books you have to manage. And at this stage, we're looking to get on a European or an American exchange, which is it's a lot more involved. It can be quite expensive as well. We require US legal opinions and things of that nature as well to explore this avenue, something that we've been looking at. But again, it's just a case of how much money do we actually want to spend on this? What benefits does it actually bring? The thing is with KuCoin, the volume may be low, but the liquidity is actually quite high. You'll find that if you actually look into the order books on many other projects around our sort of market cap or prestige, you'll find that a lot of them are listed on exchange that just flog volume for free, so that they inflate the numbers, and the liquidity actually isn't there at all. So, criticize the appearance of low volume all you like, but it is real. It's the nice thing. You can actually know, oh yes, $30,000 worth of stuff was actually traded today, instead of us being listed on HitBTC and a variety of other exchanges that just have this nebulous wash of useless information because it's all designed to deceive the user. So we're not really interested in participating in environments like that. And I think CoinMarketCap and CoinGecko have been really strongly pressing to get this sort of activity repressed and discouraged, but it still continues. People find ways to get around it. A lot of people are obviously relying on CoinGecko these days. You have all of these upstart little exchanges that are still trying to scam money out of crypto projects. So what they do is they figure out ways to boost their Alexa ranking by pretending they have more users than they actually do, getting Twitter followings that they don't actually have, buying followers and that sort of thing. Anything that they can do to give the appearance of a user base that shouldn't actually exist. There's really, at the end of the day, only a handful, probably about 10 exchanges that actually have decent user bases, and Coinbase is one of them. but KuCoin's another one of them. So I've said it before and I'll say it again, you know, we're not in a rush. There is no rush here. And what you see is what you get with Loki, which is just not the case elsewhere a lot of the time. So, you know, things aren't as bad as they seem. We're just trying to be realistic about what the situation actually is, and trying to spend our funds wisely. Another exchange would be good, so long as it is American or European. That's what we're currently exploring. But, you know, it's a case of the price is right, the time is right, and so on and so forth. So that's where we sit on that. I hope that makes sense. Right, moving on. So there's questions about session. When is it going to launch? What can we do when it launches? Blah, blah, blah. We've sort of talked about those already. Don't forget to rate and review. What will Session's development plan be after the launch? I think this is a good one for Niels.
Yeah, so for a few months, we'll be focusing on things like, well, first of all, fixing bugs, making further UI improvements, adding in a few more features that we'd like to have, although at launch we'll have all the major features that we want to have. Increasing security further, for example, by expanding on our request proxying setup to sort of make that do more hops, so you get more metadata protection. And another thing that I'd really like to spend some time on is auditing the code ourselves. And then, so I think that'll sort of take something in the order of 3 months or so. And after that, I think we'll have a very robust and full-featured application. And at that point, I think it would be right to get a third party to audit the code as well. For example, something like Trail of Bits who've I think audited Signal, could look into our code base to check that we, haven't made any errors. And at that point, we would also start looking at integrating the wallet and things like that. And then, of course, there's the marketing side of things after launch, and I think Alex would be the person to talk more about that.
Yeah. So I think there is a specific question about what our marketing plan is going to be after launch. It was something along the lines of, is there going to be a big push? Are we going to be pushing Session, etc.? As we've sort of already harped on about, Session is really the name of the game this year for us here at Loki. And that's exactly the same for marketing. Session, if not more so, I think, really, even than on the development side of things. Session's really what we're focusing on. 200,000 users this year, so marketing is definitely going to be focusing on it a lot. There is going to be a push immediately after launch. That's the short answer to that question. And first of all, we're going to try and sort of get Session in the hands of, I guess, the tastemakers for encrypted messaging apps, people that are developers, who are security experts, who know what they're doing and know what they're talking about, and sort of get the tick of approval from those people. And then down the track, in another couple of months, there'll probably be another big push to a much wider audience. Yeah, but we definitely need to, as Niels was just talking about with development, make sure that Session's really doing what we're saying it's doing, make sure that it is secure before we actually start putting it in people's hands. Yeah.
And the first thing we'll be doing after launch, of course, is posting the links to the App Store and Play Store listings so you can rate and review.
Of course, don't forget to rate and review. Yeah.
Rate and review, everybody.
I'd like to add as well, of course, the primary focus for Session is security, and people are going to be using the app for security and data protection. But also, we really want to put a focus on user experience and the design. And design has made Session look beautiful. We want to make it work beautifully, and so after launch, we're going to really try to focus on improving user experience, just making it a smooth method we have, because just the data protection alone and the security alone isn't enough to make a full-fledged, beautiful app for such ambitious goals that we have. So it's definitely an important note there.
Absolutely, that's spot on. And the marketing team's been working really closely with Vince and Niels and Heather, who's not here today, but we've been working really closely over the last month or so to try and get that user experience to a really high level. But of course, once you guys actually have session and you can give us feedback about how you're using it, what you're using it for, what the rough bits around the edges are that we can maybe sand off and make it that little bit smoother are going to be. So yeah, make sure you rate and review the app.
Yeah, and I'd like to add a little bit more to that. I think most of you already are aware that session includes a complete overhaul of the UI, but that said, so like at launch, it will already be pretty smooth, pretty nice to use, but we will still be focusing on improving the performance, making UI interactions smoother, just stuff like that.
And even over the last month or so, Niels has been internally, we've been pushing all of the session updates, iterating as they've been coming through. And it has come a long way in the last month, I would say. Like the experience of using session over the last couple of weeks, just in the office talking to people has been completely alien to what it's like using Loki Messenger that's currently publicly available.
Which is a very good thing. Loki Messenger was,
in a good way, just to be clear.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I'm really happy with how session has been behaving itself over the last couple of weeks. I've been using it a lot myself, just for work communications with people here at Loki, obviously. There are still a few things, of course, a few design things that it's on the to-do list, but we've been really trying to push to get this launched. So there are a couple of things that we want to improve, but there always will be, of course. And obviously, once we take your feedback in as well, there'll likely be a range of changes that we want to make as well. But these things all take time. And the main thing is that we want to get it out there so that we can actually start to build the user base. We can't just sit around waiting for this thing to be launched. Even if it's not perfect, it has to come out at some stage. But I'm pretty satisfied with where it's at the minute. So yeah, I mean, I hope you'll like it. I hope you'll love it. I hope you'll rate and review it, of course. Don't forget that. All right, let's go to some more questions now. Will session support multiple session IDs on the same device? It's a really good question. And I believe the answer to that is at first no, but eventually yes, pretty much. That is one of the big downsides of Signal and other messaging apps is that because they're tied to your phone, it's very hard to get a new app, and it's kind of annoying to log in and out of several chat identities and several things. But obviously with Session, because we're not tied to any phone numbers or anything like that, we want to make it so that you can easily create new accounts and switch between accounts very, very quickly and very, very easily. And this will be really good for actually being able to sustain secure communications, because you can have different long-term public keys for different purposes and be able to keep your pseudo anonymity better protected by spreading out your identity across multiple different public keys, if that's the way you want to go. But for most people, just having one public key, one long-term identity key should be totally fine. That is something that we do plan on implementing.
Yeah, in terms of timeline there, that would sort of fall into the same category as integrating the wallet. So after we have stabilized the app, fully kind of built out the features we want, audited it, and all that, so you have like a great messenger experience just with one account, then we would look into supporting multiple accounts. Yeah. And also it is because of the way the Signal database was set up, and I mean we're sort of still tied to that structure a little bit. It is we would have to rework that a little bit to support this. It's not certainly not impossible, but it's not trivial. So.
Sorry, just struggling with technology here. Always a good thing. Let's go to some community questions now from the live stream. We have a question here. Do you have any plans if some type of catastrophe happens? I hope nothing bad happens, but a nuclear war, etc. If all the teams suffer, what will happen to Loki? Interesting question. I think if there's a nuclear war, people have got bigger problems than a secure messaging app because the internet likely won't work. So I think everyone's going to be thinking about other things if that occurs. But no, it does raise an interesting question, which is, you know, how stable is the team? How robust is the team? How likely is this to succeed? How likely is this to continue? And to that, I would say, I think we're just about as sustainable as pretty much any other sort of mid-sized startup. We have a fairly stable team. We have a lot of energy to want to do what we're doing here. We all get behind the vision. We all get behind the mission. So I don't think there's any risk there. I think, you know, if there is, you know, a major global financial turndown, we'll be fairly insulated from that until we have to do more fundraising. So that is actually a risk. I don't know. It's an interesting question. Sometimes I think about it, you know, as part of my role here is to manage that sort of risk. But yeah, if there's a nuclear war, we've all got bigger problems. More questions?
Well, one thing I'd like to add to that too is that the entire project is open source, and we'll be focusing on improving our documentation and improving our code over the coming months as well. So then, even if the entire Loki team were to disappear, I mean, in theory, somebody else could, you know, pick up the baton and keep going.
Yeah, well, there's also the foundation as well, like the Loki project team, which is mostly contained within this office and a couple of people in the US. If that team was to go away, the foundation would still be able to allocate the funds from the pre-sale to another team that could work on Loki as well. I mean, that's not what we want to happen, obviously, because we work for the foundation in a roundabout way, or we work for a company that works for the foundation. But yeah, it's not like we are the arbiters of the project. The project could still exist without the people in this building, I think.
However, I would like to say, like, even though you know, in some event of a catastrophe, it could be taken on by other people. The community that we have in the office is really, really tight knit. A lot of companies, they suffer from over compartmentalization, and I find, you know, marketing talks to UI, talks to we have amazing communication, and I think that's going to push us forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it wasn't that long ago we were doing the content piece that was about like our friend request system, and I'm pretty sure I talked to almost every single dev in the Melbourne office and a dev that no longer works here, that just had worked here. I had like a couple of long conversations with him to try and get my head around that. And, you know, I think there's definitely an open line of communication between marketing and the devs, which is super beneficial. Yeah. Helps keep everything grounded.
All right. Got a question here. Are you planning to go to DefCon or have a presence at any other major conventions this year? Really good question. We don't have any concrete plans to attend many events this year. We'll probably just take it as it comes. Probably end up at the Web3 Summit again this year in around August, September. We also have RightsCon, which is not a developer conference, but actually a human rights conference. We've submitted some ideas where we could talk about the work that we're doing and how journalists, activists, and so forth can protect their privacy and security by using apps like Session. We're talking about Session quite a bit. And yeah, so I think the focus for us in terms of events this year is largely going to be oriented around session, as is pretty much our whole marketing push, not our whole development focus. Obviously, there's other stuff that is going on there, but yeah, most of the outward facing stuff this year is going to be oriented towards the session app, which, as we announced earlier, this stream will be coming out next week. So very exciting times, and then we hope to. DefCon's an interesting idea. Actually, I hadn't thought of that yet. But not really any super concrete plans at this stage. Just some rough ideas about where we might go. But when we do plan on going events, we will let the community know. And if you happen to be in the area, please do swing on by. Of course. I think I met some of you at Consensus last year, which was quite fun. So yeah.
From my perspective, I think the main thing is if there's still work to be done on session, then we would rather stay in Melbourne and actually develop the application further. If session's really kind of popping off and we can see a lot of growth coming on, then it would make sense for us to go to some of these conferences and talk about session and promote it so that people understand what it is and what it provides. But yeah, it really depends, because last time when we went to conferences, there was a bit of feeling that maybe we should have stayed in the office to do a little bit to further, for example, Lokinet and make it come along faster. It's always it's a hard thing to choose between promoting your product and actually developing it further so that when you do promote it, it looks better to everyone else. It's a balancing act.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I hope that, by sort of halfway through this year, when a lot of these events actually start occurring because it's summer in Australia here right now. It's going to be a 43-degree day here in Melbourne. That's centigrade, by the way, not Fahrenheit. And a lot of the sort of major global events just across the board, but particularly for technology, crypto, privacy, human rights, etc., occur in the northern hemisphere, and they occur when the weather's not too bad. So there's a lot of events that occur in July, August, September, right the way through to December. So in the latter half of the year, it might make more sense once, as Key pointed out, once the product actually is quite polished, then it actually makes sense to go out and do that. But we shall see, and we shall let you know. Moving right along, trying to get through all these before we run out of time. What's the atmosphere around the office like during the session launch?
I think we all have something to say about this. It's been crazy.
I think Simon tweeted, I think yesterday, something like, pro tip, app launches are really intense, and I can attest to that. It's been
It's even worse for you, isn't it, Niels?
Oh, it's horrible being in the middle of all this. It's hectic as hell, but also very exciting. It's really exciting to see everything come together and turn into a real product that does what we want it to do. But that said, I'll be happy when the launch is done. Sorry.
Yeah, pretty much everyone on the team is trying to rush towards finishing something off. So Simon and I are working on the session white paper. Niels is working on iOS and Android. Vince is working on the desktop stuff, and Alex is working around all of the content around session. So yeah, everyone's got a task that they're rushing pretty hard on to get done by the release date. So yeah, it's intense in the office.
Yeah, absolutely hectic. But after the launch, it doesn't mean things are going to slow down too much. We're still going to be full steam ahead and producing the best high quality products possible.
Actually, I think after the launch, because we have users, it becomes even more there's even more pressure on you. Right now, we're trying to kind of please this idea of what we're going to put out into the community. But once there's actually a community rallied around and starts using the application, then responding to feedback becomes important as well. So, yeah.
I've been telling myself that things will get better after launch, just so I can keep some level of sanity.
And then in the middle of all this as well, we've been drumming up a potential partnership with a really interesting journalism free speech organization as well in regards to session and some other messaging technology. So I hope I'll be able to tell you guys more about that soon as well, but that's been really interesting. That's been happening in the middle of all this as well. So yeah, it's been a pretty interesting couple of weeks. But as Keith pointed out, I'm sure there'll be many more weeks of interest to follow, because now the game changes from a hypothetical to an actual thing with actual stuff to deal with. So yeah, exciting, scary, nervous, good times, I guess.
Yeah, and the thing there too is that so normally when you launch an app, you will have some bugs after the launch that you didn't catch during development and testing. With a regular application, you have analytics and crash reporting in there to help you out. We're not going to have that, because that would expose your metadata basically. So it's an extra big challenge for us to improve on the product, respond to user feedback, fix any bugs that may or hopefully may not come up without that little bit of info that you get from analytics and crash reporting. So it's going to be an interesting challenge, but yeah, we'll do it.
Okay, moving on. We'll probably make this or the next question the last couple of questions. Nearly going for an hour now. This is your last chance to submit a question to the chat if you've got one. I haven't been able to get through all of them, but if you're lucky, you might just get it in before the end. So there's a couple of questions relating to Lokinet in the chat. Something along the lines of what's happening with Lokinet, when are more snaps going to start appearing, development of snaps, yada yada. Kay and I released a video, I think it was yesterday that it got published. Is that right, Alex?
That is correct. Yeah, I went out yesterday afternoon here in Melbourne. Yeah.
So yeah, we released a video very recently, sort of detailing a little bit about how we're addressing the current Lokinet situation in regards to session. And there's also some detail in there about, what the exact issues with Lokinet are at the moment. So if you're more interested in getting more detail on that, I recommend finding that video and watching it. But the basic issue with it right now is that snaps can't really be developed on the network right now, because since it hit the mainnet, we've run into some problems that we just wouldn't have known about until we released it on the mainnet, because we didn't have a server we didn't have a network that had 1,000 servers on it. It's literally just a scale thing. Like the DHT and a few other things are struggling to keep up with the sheer size of the network now. And there's just stuff that we would never have caught until it was put on the mainnet. So unfortunately, it's just one of those things where it's happened and we have to deal with it now. It is a sort of technical tumbleweed say that the DHT issue is the linchpin of Lokinet right now, and is absolutely correct. So there's a few upgrades that we want to make to Lokinet, and hopefully be able to push out those changes across the network within the next few weeks. And by then, Lokinet will be fully functional as well. So, alongside Session, that's also one of our major products that has come out at this time. Hopefully people can, really get stuck into snaps if that's what they're interested in. Hopefully that's something we can provide better documentation for, better examples of, improved network stability, improved network performance, and really make Lokinet something that people want to use into the long term. But I think Lokinet at the moment is definitely more of a medium-term goal, whereas Session is our current short-term goal. So, throughout this year, Lokinet isn't going to get too much of a push yet, because it's just one of those things that it needs to be more mature before it's really quite interesting. I think our resources will be better spent talking about session. So that's what we're going to focus on for the time being. Any final questions on there? Okay. So John has asked the question. I did see this in before. The highest voted question is the opposite of Loki is high lock. Discuss. Gentlemen, shall we discuss this? See, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't think high lock is the opposite of Loki at all, because we already have a high lock. We have a high lockup ratio as it is.
Hey.
It's a very clever joke. I mean, what discussion is that we can check the lockup ratio right now, hey?
Yeah, tell me what the lockup ratio is. I want to know.
I think it's 45.2% or something like that.
Hey, is it really only 45? Oh, it must be because the staking requirement keeps descending.
Yeah.
Another question from the chat, Brent Donald, where can I buy a Lokinet jumper? You can buy crew necks and hoodies from coinstop.io. Get on it. You paying Loki as well.
There will be session merch coming out as well, so keep an eye out for that as well. We've had, there will actually quite possibly be more session merch than there was for Loki, and some of it is looking very, very cool. So definitely keep an eye out for that. It'll be coming out soon.
Any more comments on the high lock? I don't think we did the discussion justice.
So it's at 45.3% right now.
Excellent.
That's pretty good. Pretty excellent amount of.
It's been higher. It has been higher, but that is still very high.
The service node count is at an all-time high now, so that's good.
What is it? Is it like it's 1,017 or
2019?
2019, yeah. Actually, no, that's a lie. I think a day ago it was 1,026, so it's not an all-time high, but it is pretty high.
I wish I had 1,019 Twitter followers. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Follow me on Twitter. Yeah.
The other thing is the versioning has now reached 85% or about 86% upgraded, which means that blinks are now extremely reliable. I think that would bring us to about 91% or 92% reliability on blink transactions, like getting a quorum that is all working, or 2 quorums in a row that are working. So yeah, blinks should be working now. I'm still contacting the exchanges to try and get them to, or I'm working with them to try and get them to support blinks. They're having a couple of back-end issues with their confirmation stuff, but we're working towards KuCoin and TradeOrger being able to accept blinks. So you'll just be able to send KuCoin and TradeOrger a blink transaction, it'll instantly be in your account. So that'll be cool as well.
Salamander Sam's just asked in the chat, was John Dummett the interim CEO of Loki? Oh my God, I remember that. So the thing you got to understand is I know John quite well. It's one of my longtime friends, and back in the day, I think he posted something to Reddit or something. I don't know. That's quite fun. I wonder who Salamander Sam is. He's been around a while too, I suppose. I expect, yeah. Anyway, I think we'll leave it at that today. We're nearly an hour in. And yeah, I hope that we got around to the questions that meant the most to you. If your question didn't get answered and you are keen to have it answered, you can always come into our Telegram channels, you can come into our Discord, you can message us directly on Twitter or whatever. We'll do our best to get you the information that you're looking for. As most of you know, we're pretty transparent with a lot of this stuff, so if you do have any questions, please do let us know. Now, I'll say it again, even though you've probably heard it already 50 times, rate and review. When session comes out, this is the one thing you can do this year that is going to make an enormous amount of difference to the Loki project as a whole over the course of the whole year. So when it comes out next week, download the app, rate and review it, and try and nag as many people as you can to do exactly the same. The more people we can get rating and reviewing this app, and hopefully they rate it positively as well, but leave your honest feedback, leave your honest opinion, the more likely we are to get into the training apps by the weekend, and we'll stay in there for the entirety of the weekend, which will be really, really helpful in getting a lot of eyes on sessions straight out of the gate. So that's something that you can help us with. That will be immensely useful. I'm going to post on Facebook for the first time in years in order to get just everyone that I know or once knew to try and help us out with this as well. So I encourage you to do the same, unless you've deleted Facebook, in which case you're stronger than I am, and good on you. But yeah, in any case, thanks for joining us once again. There's always a lot going on in the Loki community, so please do stay active. Use Session when it comes out. We'll be creating some group chat conversations that you can join within the Session app itself, and hopefully we'll be able to start migrating a lot of the community activity into the thing that we've actually built, which is really, really exciting as well. But thanks for your support as always. Thanks for sticking around. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time. Ciao for now.
Bye.
Nice.
See you, everybody.
See you, everyone. Thanks.